It's the first committee meeting of the Subcommittee on Technology, Information Policy, Intergovernmental Relations, and Procurement Reform. We have an impressively long title, I know, for everyone on that. This hearing will focus on unfunded mandates and regulatory overreach. Since the founding of our nation, the federal government has had to balance its own authority with that of the states, counties, and cities. While each has a unique responsibility to serve their constituents, they also have to operate within their limitations, both budgetary and statutory. However, lately, we've seen where dedicated and probably very well-intentioned government staff can move from serving people to mandating their preferences and priorities to an agency or legislative body onto people. In the modern regulatory environment, the probability that the federal government will overstep its clearly defined constitutional boundaries to impose its preferences on state and local leaders has become increasingly likely. With apparently little check and balance, federal regulators can dramatically affect the budgets and staff structure of state and local governments. Many state and local governments face severe budgetary shortfalls that threaten their ability to perform basic services. Private businesses are struggling against numerous impediments to job creation. Quite frankly, they're all hurting. The preferences of a regulatory agency should not determine the budget or priorities of a state or local leader. While we are not addressing the issue of private business mandates today, I would also contend there's a significant responsibility of the federal government to restrain its regulatory power to areas that are clearly constitutional in scope and that are not redundant of state or local laws, codes, or enforcements. I hear too many stories to recount where a federal regulation can cost a business millions of dollars with little or no opportunity of recourse or reversal of the matter. When the government enacts a statute or issues a regulation mandating the state or local government or private sector entity perform certain actions but fails to provide the funds needed to perform the action, it has issued an unfunded mandate. The Unfunded Mandates Reform Act of 1995, or UMRA, as you'll probably hear referred to several times today, was originally enacted to minimize the burden of unfunded mandates. This act sought to limit the growth of unfunded mandates by explicitly defining them and by creating a congressional point of order that could be used to help prevent the enactment of legislation creating them. However, multiple agencies and actions were excluded from UMRA, and the definition of an unfunded mandate it established has come under great criticism. This hearing today seeks to determine the effectiveness of UMRA. It is intended to focus on Title II of UMRA, which concerns the unfunded mandates handed down by the executive branch in the form of new rules and regulations. While the Unfunded Mandates Reform Act has a great name, it has limited reach because of its inapplicability to many regulatory actions. For instance, most rules issued to implement one of the major pieces of legislation enacted last year, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act and Consumer Protection Act, are exempt from UMRA because it would be promulgated by the Securities and Exchange Commission and independent regulatory agencies. Rules issued by the new Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection created by Dodd-Frank will also be exempt from UMRA. Today's hearing focuses on local governments. I intend in a future hearing to bring in tribal and private sector witnesses to testify about their personal experience with burdensome federal mandates. While we're here today from the mayor of Edmond, Oklahoma, I want to myself relate just a couple of anecdotes from my own state to illustrate why I've called this hearing today. For instance, City of Bethany, Oklahoma, spent over $250,000 in 1987 to put in 2 water wells, only to be required a few years later to take them out by the EPA because of their wastewater levels. Then EPA changed its wastewater requirements in 2009, costing the City of Bethany over $9 million. The street signs in Bethany also must change to a new type of reflective material to meet the Department of Transportation regulations, costing the city who knows how much yet. The Oklahoma Department of Transportation has to jump through millions of dollars of hoops to tear down an old bridge and to put up a new bridge in the exact same spot. It has to navigate the Clean Water Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and many other federal laws while people drive over an old, deteriorating bridge. What I want to know is whether Unfunded Mandates Reform Act is of any consequence in terms of limiting the issuance of these sorts of unfunded mandates. Many observers, such as the Government Accountability Office, have commented on the numerous factors that eliminate the effectiveness of UMRA in minimizing unfunded mandates. We'll hear today from GAO about these limitations, exemptions, and loopholes. Good news is, knowledgeable parties have also identified potential improvements to UMRA, and we'll hear about those ideas today.